Hi, and welcome back to Midlife Humor Gurus. I'm Sue.
I'm Jen,
I
and this is our
almost
friend
said,
Jill.
I'm Jill.
Like you
Hi.
next tag. Yes.
oh my God, I almost introduced myself as, hi, I'm Jen.
Nice.
This is where my mind is scrambled, scrambled, scrambled.
That would have been funny.
So it kind of would have actually. So today we are going to talk about, and brace yourselves. We've never said this word before, boundaries.
What?
Boundaries.
Right?
Boundaries. So we mentioned we've mentioned this several times, but in the last one we were talking about holidays, and
Mhm.
we are talking about boundaries during the holidays. Now, I know it seems like those two words stand alone are a little scary. Boundaries, eek, holidays. Oh, hell no.
Mhm.
But boundaries during the holidays are a necessity. It is your birthright to set boundaries in general, but
Mhm.
it is especially true during the holidays because if you don't do it, you're going to drive yourself nuts.
That's right. Well said.
So, yeah. So, Jen and I and Jill, all three of us, I think we have same but somewhat different experiences when it comes to
Mhm.
holidays. And I think that there are how many billions of people on earth. I think that there are that many different experiences when it comes to our
Yes.
holiday traditions and
Right.
how we see holidays and how we actually plan everything out. So
Mhm.
I say, ladies, take it away and let's talk. I want to say let's talk boundaries, but I feel like a substitute teacher coming in and talking about like something really, really, really heavy and really
Yeah.
deep and
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
even a little boring if it doesn't resonate with you. But I think it is. It's gonna resonate because we all need to have them.
Yeah. I think the reality is we were getting ready to do this. We were like, well, I'm like, here's the real boundary conversation and fun might not always go in the same exact recipe, but for today we're gonna roll with it because it's such a common issue and struggle for people in general, and then particularly at the holidays because we just have the things we do. If you listen to another podcast, we're talking about that. It's like we just kind of do what we do. We kind of just get in the passenger seat on autopilot, and we forget that it's like we don't have to just do what we've always done and start asking ourselves some really pivotal questions that might help us kind of renegotiate how we're showing up in things and reinventing the holiday for yourself that way. So we said, like, they don't have to be harsh, right? Boundaries don't have to be harsh. I would say they change with who we're with. Our boundaries are different based on who we're with and what we're talking about. You can start small. So I also think, right, we're not asking you to, right. So when I wrote my first book, it was an Amazon bestseller, and which was great because people were like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's a 36 page. I mean, let's lean in, people, bitches. I'm being honest. I'm grateful
Got
and it
it.
was fun. It's not Lord of the Rings. We're not asking you to create Lord of the Rings. What we're asking is that you slightly in little bits and pieces start creating spaces that feel more juicy and loving and of the season that you want to have versus the one that you just think you're supposed to have. So I want to kind of put that out there. And we're going to talk about, like, just know that as you initiate setting boundaries, you might get pushback. Okay. Well, maybe talk more about that towards the end. I want to make sure we absorb our time while Jill's here with us because she's got a
Yes.
limited window. And so then we're going to also talk about why we do it. So I want to kind of take it away. Jill, would you mind sharing a little bit of your story about some of the things that you feel like you've come into contact with around boundaries and the holidays and things like that, just to kind of get us up and moving?
Yeah, absolutely. Like everybody through life, cycles change. We get older, we develop families of our own. Dynamics of our immediate family or families around us might change.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, that means things like holidays need to change.
Yeah.
And priorities change, and different events in our life form that. At some point, you're probably going to have a conversation and set a boundary for yourself or your family, to preserve holidays how you need to have them happen. And that can sometimes mean prioritizing a part of your life or people in your life and feel like it might be over others. But in the end, if you speak to that and you're honest and transparent and upfront, the end outcome should be positive for everybody. So
Yeah.
that's where I think the kindness works in.
I do too. Yeah.
Boundaries are a hard discussion, and it's very hard. Very hard. So I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I don't know how to do it. I'm just going to tell you what I've experienced. Jenny can do that.
Yes, but I'll do that later. I love it that you call me Jenny. It cracks me up every time. I'm sorry if you ever say it totally cracks me up because only people from high school ever call me Jenny anymore. So if you see me have every time, I'm so sorry.
You can go back to, 1992 anytime you want. I'll take you there.
Oh, I'm there. Come on in. I got a place.
I know. 1993 is calling you once. It's whatever back again. Its nickname. So I'm so sorry if you see me. I'm like, sorry for chuckling. Everyone, Jill is a friend from high school. We're all friends from high school. So that's where I was like, oh my God, I'm having a chuckle. And I just wanted to explain myself. Because if you're not watching the visual, every time she says it, I'm like,
I remember Jen telling me one time, you can call me Jennifer. And I'm like, oh, the hell I can.
Almost nobody calls me that. Almost nobody calls me Jen. But I know, but I get it. It's good. Anyway, sorry. As you were saying, everyone needs boundaries. Go ahead.
Everybody needs boundaries. And everybody needs to have those discussions at some time, no matter how they look, no matter how they feel.
Yeah.
And even when we know they're going to be well received, because I'm lucky enough that I have relationships that I feel like they're typically well received, just maybe not at first, but I'm still uncomfortable. This year, the holidays are very different. My parents are now in Arizona. Mm-hmm. They came back last year over Christmas itself, a week that crossed Christmas Eve and Christmas. And they basically said, we will not travel at that time again. It was getting too cold here. It was too busy. Flights were expensive. So we knew we were going to do something different this year.
Yeah.
So as being kind of the organizer of my core family, my parents, my sister, and myself, I started that discussion a couple weeks ago, and I pushed for the beginning of December. It's not too cold. It's not too hectic. When we're all fresh and ready to really get in the spirit of the holiday, let's get it done. Yeah. My sister and I both have kids who are in high school and college, so they run into exams, things like that. So I really sold it on those aspects. Worked great. Mom and dad got their airfare. And last week I attended a high school wrestling meeting for my son and found out that that is not only his first tournament day, it is our home tournament, which is a huge thing in our town. Mm-hmm. Sue originally is from the town that I now live in, and she can tell you wrestling is kind of a pillar of their existence.
Yeah, it's kind of huge.
And it's my son's first year wrestling. He's a freshman and he's very excited about it. So when I looked at the schedule and saw that was their home tournament, I in my head right away said, oh shoot, we're not going to be able to do Christmas that day. That's not going to work because I am not going to ask him to make the choice between Christmas and that tournament. And I'm going to be there and I'm going to be present. And he was my priority in that space. Yes. So I now had to touch base with my parents and my sister and her family and say, hey, that weekend that I said was going to be perfect and we should all do Christmas? I lied. And I'm only available Saturday night and Sunday.
Exactly.
So I had to have those conversations. Yeah. I knew the outcome would be fine. I knew they would understand, but it's still hard.
Yeah.
It's still tough. It's still, the holidays hold a special place, whatever they look like. And you don't want to disappoint or upset anyone. Right. And I now have this feeling of, I laid the plans and now I need to change them. Exactly. It went beautifully. We will still have a wonderful holidays. My sister and her family and my parents will do something holiday related. I actually sent them a link to a carol sing along downtown. They'll have a great time. Yeah. We'll enjoy our day with our son. But those conversations are hard. I have a part of my current family, actually my boyfriend's family, that I have never had to put a boundary or say no. And this year with my son's wrestling schedule, I might have to do that. Yeah. But his brother's family has kids involved in sports and have had to do it as well. Sure. But again, even though I know it will be okay, it's an uncomfortable thing for me to have to do.
I get that.
I'm not programmed that way. And I think as women, we aren't.
Yeah.
So it's one of those uncomfortable discussions. But if you listen to one of the other podcasts that I was in, one of the things I talk about is communication and transparency. Yeah. All you can do is be real, be honest, have the tough discussion and move forward, whatever it looks like. Yeah. If it's not initially accepted, hopefully it will be. Everybody's human. Everybody, and if somebody reacts in a not positive way, you know, just remembering that they are human as well, and they're trying to take that information in.
Exactly.
So that's really my input and
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. And they probably love the way that it is, or they love the idea of the habit and the ritual of what it is. So it isn't always personal, someone's response back to us. And I think what I would talk about in terms of how to do this is this is going to be like Psych 101. So sorry, everyone, if you're like, I already know all this shit. Well, good on you. I'm just saying many of us, we don't know how to skillfully approach conversations like this that are really uncomfortable. So I would really offer that. I think what Jill noted that's so important is transparency, and honestly is showing up from an honest space. And I also think getting yourself in a space of like, I know this is going to sound super hokey, like a loving space. So you might want to pray before you do it. You might want to meditate before you do it. If there are things that help give you strength, like you might do that, you might tell a friend, like I'm about to have a really tough text or call or email or whatever, and I'm worried about it. Would you just think about me? Would you send me some good juice? Like whatever it is, like I've got this thing I've got to deal with. And truthfully, what I find is that when you are kind about something and honest, and the pivotal piece that you want to do is is say, this is how I feel about it. I would like to talk about the holidays. And you can even say, honestly, friends, one of the greatest things you can ever do yourself a solid in is say, I'm nervous about talking to you about this. I feel bad because I know I'm nervous because I know I'm pushing into spaces that this is how we've always done things, or that you might, you know, have an experience that this might not feel like it lands well for you. And so I'm nervous, and I really want to have a successful holiday this year. What I'm finding is I have conflicts with some of the things that are going on, and or I get really anxious this time of year. And I really want to enjoy our family, and trying to multiply how many, you know, events we have. What happens is I get to the end of the holiday and I'm exhausted and I'm angry. And I realize I don't know that I've retained anything that's happened because I was just in a state of distress. My nervous system was all over the map. And I don't want our holidays to feel that way. I would really like to create something different. And so even though I'm scared to say this to you, I want to be really honest about my experience, and I don't want to have an anxious year. I want to be able to be present and loving and show up and really enjoy when we have time together. And so I would really like to request that maybe we look at doing something in an alternative way. And maybe it means a different day, a different time, a shorter period of time, a different event altogether, whatever you're asking for. So the first thing you want to do is use I statements. Honestly, this is, by the way, this is good for every single conversation. So just take notes. Period. Amen. You want to start with I statements. You want to be able to come from a space of love and light, really pivotal. And you want to be able to clearly say how you feel about it. The feelings are really important because honestly, it's going to help someone be less defensive. It does. Yes. If someone hears I'm sad, scared, nervous, right, they go, oh, like this. And then, right. So then there's like this softening that someone might experience before you're going to share this. And that's really pivotal. And so then you just want to speak from the heart, man, and understand, like Jill said, sometimes people are going to have their own experience. They're having their own emotional experience, and not to just buy that as personal. So if someone's like, wait, what do you mean? But we always do Christmas. That's right. Right. I mean, you could get that, but you might be surprised by how people lean in when you are really honest and when you're coming from a really like well-intended space. People feel that. They energetically feel when you show up from a place of kindness and compassion, and like, I could really use your support in this. That's really what you're saying. I could use
that's exactly what I did. And before I sign off, I didn't call and say, yeah, I just found out Bryce has a wrestling tournament. We can't be there Saturday.
Yeah, right.
I called and I said, you know, we just had this meeting and I just learned, as perfect as I thought that weekend was, this is what's going on. And I use the words, I will not ask Bryce to miss that, because it put the importance where it is. And that was with Bryce, who loves Christmas, loves the spirit, is excited to see his grandparents from Arizona. He's really excited about this too. And he's worked really hard for it.
Exactly. And what you did that was so beautiful was you were really clear. So we're going to talk about that being another layer of really deep importance, is like the clearer that you are, the more someone can respond effectively. If I'm vague and I'm all over the map and I'm like, but I don't know what we're really going to do, and I don't really want to ask, and you got to go into your communication really, really clear about where you want to land. because you can more clearly ask for what you need. And so Jill, I think you just handled it so artfully, and I'm gracious. I'm so gracious for like you, grateful for you being willing to share a bit of that story behind the scenes, because I think that's something that all of us can relate to, right? So it's like something to hang your hat on. So Jill did such a nice job of being willing to lean into that and using some of those skills, and also being deeply clear about like, this is what I'm asking for. I'm unwilling to ask my child to forego something because I know how important that is. And I also know how important Christmas is. Mm-hmm. So what can we do about this? That was really lovely. Like, you just handled it like such an ace. Like, I feel like you don't need my whatever, but there are people that as you practice this, it is really unnerving. I mean, I did it for 20 years where I train people and walk people through this skill, and it's really hard. Yeah. And so it can feel really challenging and scary to do these things. So I respect and honor that. And I want you to respect and honor that with grace, that if it's the holidays and things kind of can feel a little bit heightened already, and you're going to go in and be like, by the way, can we change all of the things? I mean, you wouldn't ask that, but it can feel that big to us. And so just have a lot of grace and compassion for yourself as you lean into this, and understand there are reasons why you would risk discomfort on the other side of this. And this is one of the biggest pieces. I'm risking discomfort in this moment so that I can achieve peace, right? I might have less financial strain. I don't have to walk out of the holidays in deficit, and I don't have to be pissed off at all of you. I don't want to have resentment.
I can't do it all.
And I can't do it all.
We can't be everywhere. We can't do everything.
Absolutely not.
At least not at once.
That's exactly right. And I think that that's what we can speak to, right? In that I statement, I feel pulled in 20 different directions. And I want to do all the things. And yet I also don't want to show up a hot mess to our holiday, because I have strung together all these pieces and bits, and I'm showing up like a hot mess, and you're not going to get the best kind of me. And I want the best kind of me to show up. I want the best kind of outcome for all of us to have this really beautiful memory that we make together. And so to me, there is just something really powerful about being able to speak into that. And I know how hard it is. So I just want to let everyone know. So Jill had to she had to exit stage left. She's got to go get her son. So this was her boundary. So she is respecting that. And so Sue
that and I was the Irish goodbye, right?
And actually she did well, because the Midwest goodbye, let's just talk about it, right? 20 minutes long. I'm just going to
tell least. That's the first wave. Yeah. Yes.
So we knew she was going to have to exit. So we want to thank Jill Segerson, our beautiful friend, for being part of this journey and speaking to her boundaries, because she did it like an ace. So we're just going to
so lovely.
It was so lovely. And so she's warned us. She's like, I have to, at a time I have a cutoff. I'm like, you just exit stage left, doll. You're great. But I really do want, so we had a joke about the Midwest goodbye, because it's actually a freaking thing. Like, it literally is a 20-minute long journey.
Whoop, I suppose. I suppose. That's how you start.
You have to hug and then have another conversation with every person. Yeah. This is our 4th of July with our family too. And it's hard because there's so many of us. So when you go to say goodbye, you probably are saying goodbye to someone you actually haven't had the chance to say hello to yet. So then you're like, and by the way, this, oh, gotta go. Love you. Oh, and the next person, oh, we didn't get to see each other. Oh my God. Okay. So anyway, so look at that. She did such a good job silently exiting. Look at her.
I'm so jealous. Yeah, she just,
and I'm very impressed.
I know people who do the Irish. It is Irish goodbye, right? Where they don't even say anything. They're just.
I have not a single idea.
You look around and you're like, well, they can't be in the bathroom, otherwise we need to call a doctor because it's been a while.
Well, can I tell you one of my very favorite things about this notion of the not goodbye. There was a holiday we were having. My sister will really appreciate this story. She'll be like, thanks for sharing that story. She's tired. She's like, I'm going to go get my pajamas on. Cool. She goes upstairs. Nothing. I'm like, what in the hell is happening? She literally fell asleep on her bed. She put her pajamas on, legs over the bed, fell asleep, fast asleep on her bed.
Been there more than once.
Like, that was it. And good night. And good night, Irene. And off she went. So now I give her shit about it, of course, because that's what sisters do. So I'm like, are you coming back actually? Or is this like, okay. So anyway, as we were saying, so boundaries. I want you to remember that we do it for a million reasons. And honestly, it is a preservation. It is an honor and respect of yourself. and your people, actually, which is ironic because sometimes when we go to do boundary work, people can feel really hurt and offended. And they're like, but wait, we've always done it this way. But wait, I like it when you do all the things. I like it when you make the whole meal. I like it when you travel 5 or 6 hours and I don't have to. I get it. I get it, right? But what I'm going to say is that the truth is that we want to be really honest because it is creating a different relationship that's actually respecting both sides of that equation.
Yes.
So someone might not feel that to start and understand that, and that's okay. They don't have to get it. They don't have to understand your journey. They don't have to. It's not a requirement. Yes, it's nice when they do. So Jill was able to speak to some of that where some of her people were really like, I totally get it. 100% respect. We'll figure this out. We'll make it work. That's not what we're all going to run into. I wish I could tell you it was going to be that slick and easy. It's not. You are likely going to bump into people who are like, what the F? What do you mean?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up with
Please
you
do.
Actually, Jen, and you segued into it beautifully. So am I interrupting you or do you have another continued? Okay.
Not at all.
So my thing is, and this is boundaries in general, it's not necessarily just holidays because I don't really do holidays with my family anymore, based on my own design, and it's fine. And my family is scattered throughout the state. They're scattered across the country.
Yeah.
So I will say that the idea of having this conversation, and I'm thinking of one person in particular in my family, and the idea of having this conversation is I am projecting because I've had conversations along these lines with this person before where I'm sitting down and I'm saying, okay, I am telling you how I feel. Let's talk about this. And then the kickback is always, always, always the narcissistic. Well, what do you mean that's how you feel? What do you mean that's how you feel? Why is that how, what do you mean? That's not how I feel. I don't feel that way about it. Now, I would like to point out that as much as I love this person is single and lives alone. And there is a distinct reason for that because there is no give or take. You either do it this person's way or you're a psycho.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Oh, great.
So I'm just going to throw that out there that it is always a hard no if you approach this person and it is not 100% what you want does not 100% line up with what they want. So that being said, how would one approach someone like that in their family? Because you know who you are. You all know who you are. You know who the family member is. Don't sit there and tell me you have a perfect freaking family. Guarantee you're lying because I know you don't. And if you don't have someone like that in your life, more power to you.
You're like, I can share.
Because
I adopt out my family members that are pain in the ass if you so choose.
Yes, my family crest is definitely a picture of the biggest narcissist in the world. So that being said, as much as I love my family, and I
know you do.
These are the kinds of conversations that are probably the hardest to have.
Yeah, they are.
Because I have allowed myself to dip into the doormat ditch where I will just let anybody and everybody walk all over me.
Yeah.
Because it is the path of least resistance. It is the easiest thing for me to do because it keeps me from getting yelled at. It keeps me from getting belittled. And it keeps me from angering people so much to the point where all of a sudden I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Yep. And now that I think of it, this might be why I don't do the holidays thing. maybe that was the tipping point. Maybe this is more therapy for me than I
It sounds like so much fun. I don't know why you don't look forward to it. Yeah.
Right. Oh, it's great. It's great.
Yes.
So that going back to my original question.
Yes.
How are these conversations possible with somebody that you've tried having these conversations before in general?
Yes.
But B, now you really want to drive the point home that you are sticking your flag in the dirt. You do have a stake.
Yeah.
And you are taking a little plot of land
back
in the country known as Dignity. And you want a piece of that back, even
Oh
if
my
it's
God.
just like
Yeah.
2.5 acres and a mule. That's
I
all
all of
you
a sudden had a
want.
flashback of Oregon Trail. Thank you. A little
Oh.
dysentery on the side. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry.
I was thinking of the movie Far and Away with
Oh,
Tom
it's
Cruise
good.
and
We're all
Nicole
having
Kidman.
our own references right now. That's good. Okay, good.
But,
It's good to be
again, we're going
cohesive.
back to the Irish thing.
I know,
Apparently,
right.
that's just
Okay.
the theme. Okay.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. So I digress. Back to my original question.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you do with that?
What do you do with that?
So this is why, like, one of the things is that when I was doing traditional psychotherapy, and I no longer do it as traditional format, I do coaching. But one of the things that it's the reason I warn people, I know it doesn't sound glorious or fun, is you expect resistance, because people are going to be hurt and they're going to be pissed. Now, not every time. No, you got someone that's relatively healthy, they're probably going to lean in with you. Okay. If you get someone that maybe is struggling, they're not going to show up and be like, oh, we can do that, we'll be fine. No, they're going to freak the F out. So then what do I do? Right? Because you're right. And if I have someone that has pretty significant mental health needs, they're definitely maybe not going to be able to lean in with me. And so when someone approaches something like that, and someone says, give me an example, if you would, Sue. I know this is sort of putting you in the spot. What might someone say? So you would say, hey, you know what? I really want to talk about the holidays. I really feel like I need X, Y, and Z. What would this person maybe say to you? Would you give me like their feedback? Like if you were like, I really don't feel like I can do the holiday, or whatever you would say, what would that person respond like?
It would start off almost like a middle manager pocketbook guide. So it would start off a little bit with, okay, yeah, I guess I can consider that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I understand. I see what you're coming from. I see where you're coming from.
Okay.
It's just that, we've always done it XYZ.
Yeah, I hear that. You know what? You're totally right. You're right.
And let's say Sue, were to say, again, it's the feeling thing. It's the whole thing of coming at it from me saying I feel is a moot point, because nobody gives a shit about how I feel.
And I would still tell you, I know. And go ahead, finish your thought.
No, and
I'll sip it.
That is, this is my guilt talking, because it has been by my design that this is, you always treat people, or you always teach people how to treat you.
Absolutely.
And I have done that. Yes. I mean, it kind of started out from the other side. Yes. And then I have accommodated.
Yes.
And now it's full circle to the point where I'm like, you know what? We need to pull up roots, and we need to replant somewhere else, because I'm in concrete right now, and I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. You're sort of living your own hell.
A little bit. Yeah. True story.
So I think what happens is that I would encourage you, if you're listening and this sounds like something that you might relate to, and I'm guaranteeing you someone's listening right now, they're like, that's my mom, my dad, my sister, my whatever. So they totally get it. And one of the things you can do, one, is still always come at it with talking about your feelings.
Okay.
I don't care. I don't care that I do care that they don't care. But what I do want is it's integrity. It's showing up, and it's offering an opportunity that you're modeling what it looks like to have good communication.
Okay.
And never underestimate the seeds you're planting, because I know it can feel defeating to us, right? Which I completely understand that. And also, I always want you to rise up. I always want you to, like, you know what, this is how I know it's likely to best be received, or it's also how I would want it to be received. So I know that sometimes I'm going to go in and it's like hitting a brick wall. Still doesn't mean we don't do it. So I think that we still show up in that space of like, gosh, I'm nervous about telling you this, or I want to talk to you about something because I'm having a hard time with this. And I'm feeling like I'm not looking forward to the holiday, or I'm really stressed about the holiday and I can't do this. And if someone says like, well, but we've always done it this way, you say, you're absolutely right. We have always done it this way. And that makes it hard for me to ask for this, because I want to show up and I want everyone to be happy. I've done that for a long time. I show up and I want everyone to be happy. Mm-hmm. And what happens is I'm not happy. So the holidays are done, and then I'm sad, or I'm stressed, or I've overdone myself, or I've overspent. And so what I'm asking for is compassion and grace, that we can be creative and reinvent how the holiday looks and feels. And even though it is hard for everybody, I know I'm asking you something that's hard or challenging. And I'm still going to ask the question because that's what I feel like I need. I think it's okay to say that. Now, your person might say,
yeah, he stopped listening after you asked him for compassion.
And that's okay. And that's okay. And that's okay. And they don't have to listen. They don't have to. Their right is to not listen to us. That's right. Now, what you do, here's your solution, is you become a broken record. It's fucking annoying. I will warn you.
Repetition.
Because it is not a glorious, I wish I had some really like mystical fairy shit to like, you know, sprinkle dust on you all and you'd be like, oh, sweet. Nope, that's not how it goes.
You are dressed for it.
I mean, but
love it. Love it.
But I want to sprinkle my dust on you all, and you're still going to have to do the effing work. I'm real sorry. Yes, so what that looks like is when someone continues to push back, but, and you go, I know that is how we've always done it. And what I'm asking for is that we don't do that anymore. Yep, I know, but and then you say, here's the deal. I'm going to give you some time because I feel like this is maybe something that needs you to be able to sit with it because I've put something big into the world for you to hear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some time to sit with it because it might take some digesting to understand. And I get it. And I respect that. So rather than us continuing to circle the drain and talk about it over and over again, right now, let's just agree to take a break, step away. I'm going to give you some time to sit with it, and then we'll reconnect. And then when you get back together with them, you're going to say the same damn thing again. And they're going to get pissed sometimes. You already said that. Yep, I did, because this is where I'm landing. And I'm really sorry that you're having feels about that this is hard for you. It's hard for you to hear that. I understand that. They are not required to respond well.
That is fair.
They're not. And
it is fair. And
so go ahead.
Yes. No, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Nope. Go. You were going to say something.
I was just going to circle back to what we've talked about before. When you are talking to somebody, setting these boundaries, and Jill said this before she exited left. You coming at them is never going to work. And we've said that before. You coming at them saying, you make me feel like, XYZ. Nobody ever in the history of humankind and beyond has ever responded.
I don't.
In a positive way. Being approached like that. Nor it's human nature to feel.
Absolutely.
Defensive against behavior like that. So obviously that is not the way.
No.
And so that's where the defense is going to come in from some people who really don't hear you.
Exactly.
They're not listening to you. They're not hearing you.
Nope.
They might be thinking in their head what they're going to say next because they're going to drop a nugget that's going to make you go, oh my God, you're right. I am totally leaving my integrity by the roadside so that you can get your way. What time should I be there? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh my God, that's the best.
And it is hard to, especially when you can sit back and you can admit or say or discover,
right,
I paved this road.
Yes.
This is my doing.
Yep.
And so the kickback or the pushback is not something that you should see as a punishment,
right,
but as a response to something that somebody has gotten used to. Now you're trying to change it.
You're trying to change the habit. And think about it. It's, I mean, this is like a terrible analogy, but it's like stopping smoking, right? I know that's a funny analogy. So when we are like, we need to have compassion and understanding. And it doesn't mean we have to tolerate someone's abusiveness. Okay. That there's a line in the sand, but I'm saying if I approach it and I go, look, my asking my parent to not host Christmas on Christmas Day, that I'm going to stay home, like when I had to have this conversation for the first time, understand in some ways, it's like asking my smoking parents to stop smoking.
Yeah.
It's
without
really
them
hard.
wanting to.
Without them wanting to. We're literally asking someone to move off of a mark. And it's not, and sometimes so much of that can be projected back at us. And it's just, but we love it this way. It's loss.
It is.
For a parent to not have their kid there, for example, that's just one example. It's a loss for them. And so it's just about putting ourselves in their shoes for a minute. And it's not that we're going to just tolerate abusive behavior or screaming and yelling or swearing at us or anything else. It doesn't mean we have to change our request or how we feel about it. Right. But if I look at it and I go, look, in a maybe more moderate setting, my parent, my loved one, my aunt, my uncle, whomever is sad because I'm now not going to do the same thing we've always done. And they really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, first I can have some compassion, but now listen, if you're really dealing with someone who is really resistant, because there's right, that's the more moderate road. But I think keeping that in mind, what it does is it takes the sting out of the personalizing of it. Because one of the things that we also humanly want to do is go, oh, so you're pissed off now. I can't even ask for one thing I want, right? So all of a sudden now we're like right in the mode.
Yes.
Okay. And if I
go. That's what
I
was going to get to too.
Absolutely.
The easy thing to do is to get down in the dirt.
Absolutely. To join them right where they are. You go, fine, I'll fucking ante you up and I'm going to see you to, here's this little gem. So now we've lost the battle. So what we really want to recognize about Boundaries 101, period, amen. I don't care what it is. And we'll circle back to this 5 million times on our podcast, but really truly 101 is that
the word of the day is
the word of the day is boundaries. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to repeat them over and over again. You are not always going to be comfortable. So if you give yourself permission, and then when you go in, and if you can have the awareness rather than having an expectation, it's going to be some glorious conversation, but I have the awareness when I show up and ask for what I need, sometimes people are not going to respond well. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean it's actually about me.
Yes. Oh, mic drop.
So that for me is, this is about me. So if I can take me out of it, and when they start responding and they're bulleting you with their pissed offedness and whatever else that is coming at you, their comments, their swears or whatever, you're like, okay, this is not about me.
Yeah.
Because I just did something really mature and responsible and loving and kind. And I came in and I'm really bringing this to you, like with my whole self and my heart included. And your response is to freak the F out. That's about you. And there's deeper work to do there, which we will not discuss today because that's a lot. Because like, why can't someone sit with our boundaries? Right? I mean, like that's a whole bigger. We won't talk about it. But I think it's really powerful to just say you become a broken record, and you do not have to say. And what you can say eventually is, we've already talked about this. We've already talked about this. We've already talked about this. And I'm going to tell you something. The one story that really stands out to me, because I want people to have hope. When we were going to do this, I'm like, oh my God, it's really hard to infuse humor and hope into this shitty conversation because boundaries are really complicated. They are. We're going to talk about in black and white. We're missing sort of some of that gray. We'll get to that as we proceed in our podcast. But I just want to say, like, I get it, that this is not a fun conversation. It's a really tough task. And what I want to say is, I had a client years ago, and without any identifying information, she had a really, really difficult conversation and relationship with her mom. And her mom was tough. I mean, she would come in and we would role play and we would talk. And I'm like, oh my God. Ooh. It took like every cell of my therapist's brain to like work around and find loopholes and help her, because her mom was like so an expert at the like finding the way to like dive in and still find another little avenue into like the pain of it. And so we did so much work. And when she first started, I thought, oh my God. Now, look, I'm a big, like, love to fix it person. Love, love, love. And then as I did psychotherapy, I'm like, there are some families that are never going to be fixed. Sorry, mic drop. And I was really concerned. This might be one that might not ever resolve, because I knew what my client needed. I knew why. I knew her history. And I was like, but I'm going to give it my everything, because I really want this young woman to have a relationship with her mom. And we worked. And I'm telling you, it was the most creative, it was probably some of the most creative work I've ever done in my psychotherapy practice, honestly.
Wow.
And like, we're going to travel and we're not going to stay there. We're going to stay in a hotel and we're going to rent a car rather than being stuck with only one person's car. And now we're going to do this. And it was a whole family dynamic. And what I will say is, literally, she came back after some work and after some time away and was like, we're great. I was like, nah. She's like, we're great. I held myself to the fire. I held her feet to the fire. I did it. And now she and I have a really beautiful relationship, and she completely respects my boundaries. So I will tell you, it was dark. When I tell you, I was like, we are not going to solve this one. I mean, there was a lot of history. It was very complicated trauma. I'm like, oh, I got my work cut out for me. But I will tell you, it was from the work and her persistence. It wasn't me. It was her work and her persistence of that broken record.
Yeah.
Nope. We talked about that. Nope. I'm sorry. I won't do that. That's not okay for me. That doesn't feel okay for me. I mean, she incessantly set them, and it actually worked. So I will tell you that this shit works. I know to your ears right now, for those of you listening, if you have complex issues in your family, you're like, that shit will not work. I get you. I see you. I feel you. And I'm going to tell you right now that there are times where this actually does work. And if someone cannot respect your boundaries, if you do this work and do this work and do this work, and still, then you've got to reevaluate your relationship.
Yes.
And that's a whole bigger conversation that we need to have today. But I just want to say that truly this woman did, I mean, like powerful work. I like literally so proud of her. And her success was because she dug in and she's like, this is the only way we're going to have a relationship.
Sure.
And it fucking worked.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, you know, I think too, for me, I'm speaking for myself personally.
Sure.
I do believe that part of progressing forward to a relationship where you can set boundaries,
yes,
change things a little bit and have a stronger relationship, I do think it starts with, and we will talk about this a lot too, letting go.
It does.
You do have to let go of the conversations that you've had in the past.
You have to let go.
Sucks because
it does.
Sometimes it feels really,
yeah,
really good to be a martyr.
Yes, it does.
I'm just saying.
You're like, I don't know anything about it, but it's so true. Letting go of sometimes the resolution as well. Like the only person that I can honor in my journey is me.
Yes.
And I don't mean that selfishly. It doesn't mean you don't give a shit about anybody else, but the only person I can actively really honor is myself.
Yes.
And so someone will either get it or they won't.
Yes.
They'll respect it or they won't. And at the end of the day, that says more about them than it says about you.
Exactly.
And being able to let go and release that. That's why I wrote a book about release, letting go of expectations, because it is really important shit that we do. And so to me, you're exactly right, is the more we grip into an outcome, the more it will evade us.
Absolutely.
So sometimes going into these calls, these conversations, or these interactions, and I just go, I can only show up the best form of me.
Yes.
And this is one of my adult midlife tricks, I will tell you right now, that I did not expect to say. It is a midlife trick of mine to say for myself, the only thing that I can ever do is give you myself authentically in whatever form it is. And that's all that I can offer you. I can't do more than what I'm giving you. Yeah. And if I do that at the end of the day, I'm okay. Like, I don't love it. I don't like when there's dis-ease. I don't like when there's relationships that don't feel good. I don't like that. I don't like it more than anybody else.
Right. No,
and
fair.
After so much living and so much experience and so much practice, I was like, if I can only show up the best version of me in the best way I know how, and you cannot receive it, I cannot do more than that.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I have to look at myself in the mirror and I have to be able to sleep with that at night. And I'm okay with that. So to me, I had to get to a place. Now, this was my sanctuary and my way of surviving really difficult things like this, was like, I can only offer what I can offer. You will either pick it up and get it, or you can leave it laying down. And that's my solution. And then I get to decide how I want to live with that. But I will tell you that I really want to encourage you to think about, if your relationships are that deeply wounded, that it might not be for your best and highest good.
Correct.
Right. Which is like, we can talk about that in depth another time and another, because I think that's really heavy.
And it is heavy. And I do think that it is, again, that's kind of one of those outcomes as well that we were talking about. You don't want to jump to that.
No. Either. And we want to start from the space of love and light. We want to start from the space of authentically showing up. We want to talk about our feelings and our emotions and say, I feel this about this.
Yeah.
I would like to ask for this. We want to be clear. We don't want to beat around the bush. Jill was super direct and she said, sorry, I planned this, and I'm not going to ask my son to miss out on something that's really important to him that he's earned.
Yeah.
So how can we make a workaround for everyone? And this shit happens. And so we can be sorry that there's a shuffle, but we don't have to be sorry that we're drawing the boundary, right?
Correct.
I want you to really feel that in your being. Like, yeah, I don't have to be sorry because I'm setting a boundary. I can be sorry that it kind of like means it's a kerfuffle. Like now we've got to like fuck around with the schedule. And like that happens. I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
but I'm not sorry. I'm respecting my child, or sorry, I'm respecting myself, right? This is what I want you to lean into. And so even though I know that there's so much energy and juice around the holiday, and there's so much pull and magnetism to do things the way we've always done them, or who wants to have a hard conversation on the holiday? Well, but here we are. And sometimes it's the most necessary thing. And it's also sometimes the kindest thing you will do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know this, but it's also sometimes the kindest, most powerful thing you will do for a loved one.
That's what I was just thinking too.
They will not receive it that way to start necessarily.
No.
And when you begin to have an interaction like that, it's your relationships are so much cleaner.
I agree. And I think that what you're doing too, by setting your own boundary and having the conversation over and over and over again, I do think that you are then giving them permission to take control of their journey as well.
Exactly. Well said. If I deflect, you're going to sit in your own stuff.
Right.
That's what you're left with.
Yeah.
And it's not meant to be unkind, but if I deflect you, you're going to sit in your own shit.
Right.
And so it isn't an act of unkindness. When I tell you to repeat yourself, like, I know it feels ungenerous. And like, well, we can just have a whole nother, do you want to have another 2-hour F and go around with your family, your mom, your dad, do you want to have that? Probably not.
Right.
Right? Who is that kind for? No one wins, because you're not going to change your mind, and you need to respect your own needs. You need to honor that.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to just say, I know this is hard. We've already talked about this. Right. I'm not going to have this conversation again. Sorry.
Saying those words is, I'm not having this conversation
again. I'm not going to have this again. Yeah.
And you know that we're having this conversation again because you are saying the same things and you are expecting me to cave.
That's right. And that's what it is. That pushback is, if I nudge you enough, history tells me you will cave and you will do what I want you to do. Correct. That's why they do it. And sometimes we've inadvertently trained our loved ones to expect that.
Absolutely. And that's a tough pill to swallow too.
It is.
I don't know about you, but taking responsibility for things is not something I like to do.
Well, it does not feel glorious, but the reality is, and if we also just say and give ourselves grace, it goes back to, if I'm only ever doing the best that I can with what I have and know, I need to have compassion for myself. Mm-hmm. So some of this work, when we're diving into that psychological depth, it can be really painful, because we'll go into shameful places where we're self-punishing and we're self-gaslighting ourselves. And, well, if you didn't do that, then your parent wouldn't expect, you can't, that's not helpful space.
Right.
It's not. So there's so much about self-compassion and self-love and like grace that you have to have, because as you lean in, your people are going to magnetically know your sweet spots to pull you back in.
Yes. And they don't even know they know.
They don't know that they know, or they know and they're like, hey, this is how I get it to work. They're actually, it's so funny in teens when they're misbehaving, some of their behaviors are actually become strengths in adulthood. And so we want to think that, at one point, those things worked for your family members. They're not being dinks. And so I would have to say to a parent, look, I know your kid's a pain in the ass, and I know they will ask 50 effing times. And guess what? That persistence that pisses you off, someday is going to pay off when they are willing to go to their boss and voice that they feel like they have a raise coming.
Right.
So it isn't that all of our behaviors are bad or wrong either. It's just that that's what someone is in the habit of doing. And so, like, just having space for them and for yourself, like, this is hard shit we're doing. Yeah. It really is hard shit we're doing. And so it's not a small subject, right? This is why we're like, you'll hear us say the word boundaries about 9 million times as a drinking game. You for sure be drunk at the end. And so if you listen to end on end to all the podcasts we're going to make, you would be drunk for sure.
I'm already half in the bag. It's all good.
But what we really want to instill in you is this is the beginning of that if this is where you are starting your journey and it's the holidays and there's big, heavy conversations to have. And maybe it's Thanksgiving, maybe it's a holiday event, maybe it's the way that you do Christmas Day, whatever it might be, spending, whatever's going to come up, is we just want to get you like tools in your toolbox that it's like, it's okay to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm asking. This is what I need or don't need. And then let that be. And then understand that your person might have a hard time, and understand that they might be projecting onto you, and understand it doesn't belong to you. And be okay with that, right? Don't go in with an expectation that it'll be shit or not shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then understand when someone shows up that they're dealing from their own space.
Correct.
And that your tool is to be respected. And so to be respected, if it is like you sound like a broken record,
mm-hmm.
you can do that until you come to a point where you go, I'm no longer going to have this conversation. I've already been clear about where I'm at, and I know that makes you uncomfortable, and we're not going to continue to have the same conversation over. You get to do that.
Yes.
I want you to lean in and understand very clearly. I'm giving you permission. You don't need it from me. But if you need to hear the words, I give you permission to take care of yourself, to set a limit, to set a boundary for your own well-being and for your sanity. Because at the end of the day, I don't want you to have resentment. At the end of the day, I don't want you exhausted at the end of the holidays because you just ate up your feelings and pressed them away and respected everybody else but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that for you. I don't want you to feel like you're ending the season with a deficit. If you were a bank and you're now, $5,000 in the hole, what's that like energetically? That's energy.
Right.
Your deficit energy. You don't have to do that anymore. That's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just want to kind of like give you some of those tools, right? You can start small. Friends, Rome was not built in a day. If you know that eventually you don't want to have the holiday a certain way and you're scared and nervous about this, bite off a piece.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. As with anything.
Absolutely.
It's
absolutely
better for the digestion to start small.
Exactly. So if this year it looks like we'll come, but we're only going to be there for 2 hours.
Yes. Boundary.
Absolutely. We're not all writing together. We're going to write separate.
Boundary.
You get to, we're not going to do 10 gifts. We're going to do 5 or 3 or 2.
Boundary.
Exactly. So I want you to just get the idea that you can lean in gently into these places to have so much compassion for yourself and the other people, that it's really that everyone's changing and shifting, and that makes us uncomfortable. It's natural. And to really just give yourself permission to lean into that space and start small and give yourself a ton of compassion. And also, you need support. I didn't say this and I don't want to spend 20 minutes on it, but I want to say too that one of your biggest pivots is like, who am I going to call when this is done? Who am I going to text? Oh my God, I just had this conversation.
Yes.
Okay. Who is going to sit with you in that space? What were you going to say, honey?
I was just thinking that's a very, very important piece to this. And my thought process is, and I guess it depends on your family dynamic. In my family, it would not be a member of my family.
And that's great. That that is so brilliant.
Because really it's going to circle.
Yep. It's going to, right. It has a tendency sometimes in our own family systems to circle the drain. So we do need, this is why there are coaches. This is why there are therapists. This is why there's communities and groups you can be a part of. This is why you've got great friends.
This is why there are bars. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I keep joking about that. And that's a terrible thing to joke about. Like, you should drink your problems away.
We're not promoting that, but that was my favorite one line of this entire boundary conversation. Oh my God. Also true. This is why we have bottles of wine.
And so it's why bars are open on the holidays.
That's exactly right. So understand that you will also need your people that are going to show up and support you. And
I think that's a great piece. I never even thought about that, but you are right. That is, you need that net underneath you because you're going to need it.
You're going to need it, and you're going to want
the net is going to be used. That's just all there is to it, because there is going to be a fall one way or another.
There's going to be struggle, and we want to know who's going to hold space for that and who understands and who absolutely backs us. So, I have a small pod of people that are in my wheelhouse, and they're my go-tos, and they're the ones that I call and refer to. I go to coaching. I go to my energy work. I have places where I too go and refuel to hold space for this shit. I too do that work. And I really want to say I'm walking, talking, living proof that is very helpful. So I don't just preach it. I live it, right? I really want to be very clear about that because I think that that's something that I want to like, I have to do the same work I encourage everyone else to do. I just talked about it today in my energy work. So this is the same shit I'm doing.
Yes.
Even though I know it, I have to do the same practices.
Right. And it's not even so much that you know it more than anyone. It's not that. It's you're living it too in real time.
Absolutely.
And that's with everybody. Everybody is in a different place.
Yes.
With their family members, with their friends, with their bosses, with their coworkers, with their neighbors, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And so I think it's a gut instinct too. I think if you really listen to play it out, Jill mentioned before now, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if it was on the air or off the air when we were talking to her.
Yes.
But she had such a good point when she said things like, I think back to last year and I remember this, and this, but I don't remember this. So put more of an emphasis on the things that you are going to remember and that are going to create a memory for you that's going to give you peace and joy and is not going to cause you stress and make you relive the moment over and over again.
Exactly.
Wishing you had done it differently.
Exactly. No, that's so well said. And we had a couple of questions that was like, at the end of the day, right? Does this feel good to me? Does this bring me joy? Does this, so there's a handful of things that you might even go through and ask yourself. And we talked a lot about it with reinvention. It's when we're doing this work, when we're revolutionizing how we show up to anything, if it's a holiday, if it's how we approach our relationship, a marriage, our purpose, career, friends, whatever it is, when you're reinventing, I want you to sit back from it a little bit, have that objectivity and go, how does this feel for me? Is this sustaining me? Does it bring me joy? And when the answer is no, it's time to lean in and do some work.
Yes.
And so about your holidays, about those things, those are really beautiful questions. And they're your indicators that there's work to be done. So if I go, nope, I feel like an asshat shit heel by the time the holidays are done, I'm $5,000 in the hole. I hate my partner. I'm not speaking to my kid. And I pretty much never want to see my parents again. How's it working for you?
Can't wait for next year.
Exactly. Can't wait for next year. So, right. We want to ask ourselves those questions is how am I showing up to this? Is this serving me? How am I feeling on the other side of this? Because those are our markers for where we go, oh, ooh, okay, there's some shit we got to do. And that's okay. And it's not meant to be a criticism. You're not wrong and broken. It just means there's some work to be done. And that's okay. We're all doing work all the time.
And it's not going to be solved this holiday season. I hate to give you a spoiler, but it's not.
It might not be resolved this season. And that is really okay too.
Yes.
Is that if you can just give yourself the leeway to really honor the parts of your story that we talked about this in our membership this week, when you lean into the spaces where you're pushing up against those rules of your family, of the world, of the ones you've been delivered, and you go, I'm not going to do that anymore. That is such a freaking win. And will it feel good? Not necessarily.
Not at first.
Not at first. And it's one of the biggest tricks of psychology that I learned when I was a new therapist. I thought doing the right thing would feel fucking amazing.
No.
Let me tell you quickly, you become deeply aware. You're like, that's some Pollyanna fucking thinking right there. Because in fact, you can be doing the best thing for yourself and others and feel like absolute shit when it starts. So
yes.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I have said before, if it hurts, if it feels like crap, if it is actually causing you a little bit of like heart hurt, you are actually doing the right thing.
You're probably doing something right.
And that's not just with boundary setting. I mean, that's with any decision that you make about certain things, really big things, really little things.
I agree.
I've learned that, unfortunately, the hard way, but I actually feel blessed that I've learned it because it's a good gauge. It's a good, it's a good bar to set.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love that you said that. I just want you all, when you leave, I'm very transparent about the work that people do. I always was in my practice. I never wanted to be shifty. I never wanted to sell you, oh, boundary work. Because I would tell people, I want you to know that you're about to walk up shit mountain and it's going to go like this, the progress. If you come in and doing this work, whatever work it is, and you expect a straight line of progress, you are going to be so defeated. So I want to be so honest with you to buckle your seatbelt, to lean in, to have compassion and grace, to understand that this is work and that there is nothing wrong or broken when it's hard. And to just have that mindset so that when you go in and it is hard, you don't go, well, this shit doesn't fucking work.
Right.
Because that's what people would do.
That's the easy way.
It's easy to say this shit doesn't work and I'm just done. Now look at that client story, which is beautiful. Of she worked her ass off for years. She did not give up. And it absolutely turned her entire relationship around.
Right.
It can be done.
Changing.
It is game changing.
And so I'm sorry.
No, go.
No, I'm so sorry.
Go. You're good.
You go.
I don't even remember the hell I was. You're good. Go.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
I'm not offended in the slightest.
You were talking about the mountain and you were talking about how you're going to get to the mountain and it's going to be hard. Yeah. There is I have mentioned her to you and I don't know if I can mention, can I mention people?
I don't care.
So I started following, she is oh my God, I don't know her credentials, but I started following her. Her name is Nicole Sachs.
Okay. Yes.
And
yes.
I'm specifically focusing on the mountain, and she in the work that she does with people, she has used the same analogy as a mountain, but she said something so beautiful that when you start at the mountain,
yes,
it's not that you're doing this, you're doing this. I don't know if you can see my finger. You are going around in a spiral. So you start at the base.
So rather than a straight up deal, it's
correct.
It's right.
The base of the mountain is the biggest. That's the biggest obstacle.
Yes.
You start going up the mountain at an angle that is circular.
Right.
But it's upward. And it's slow.
Yeah.
And so when you reach that point where you think, well, screw this isn't even working. Stop and look down and see where you started.
Yeah. Because
you're going to see your starting point in the distance.
Absolutely.
And the peak is going to start to come in clear.
Absolutely. And the more that you practice these tools, whichever tools you're working in, the easier that they get.
Yes. Oh God, yes. The easier. You're quicker at your response
You're better.
times.
So I am much better in midlife at catching and setting limits and doing my work real up front than when I was 20 and 30.
Yeah.
Way better, which brings me more peace.
Mm-hmm.
So I also want to say that this is, it does with time. It is exactly what you said. It's that the progress grows. And even though it still might be a struggle, it's quicker, easier, and that momentum has already been built.
Mm-hmm.
So the really cool thing is once you build a set of skills that you're doing all the time, they become right.
It's
at first
hand, just like those,
absolutely,
just like those mechanisms that you learned as a kid that you used for coping.
Exactly.
These are tools that now you're choosing them. They're not thrusted upon you. You're choosing them. And that is so liberating.
It's so different. It's so very different. And so, you know, this is a piece that we just felt really powerfully about, you know, whether it's the financial component, whether it's emotional component of the holidays, whatever you're leaning into. First of all, we see you. I mean, I just really want everyone to sit with that for a minute. If you're still listening to us, we may have lost people 20 minutes ago. If you're still listening to us, I want you to really lean into that we see you. And we too have been in different places in our lives where we've had to do the kind of work that we're talking about. We understand the effort that it takes. And so we first want to give compassion and grace. And we want you to adopt compassion and grace as your tools. And to give yourself permission to lean into this work and know that you are doing something that's so deeply ingrained and challenging, and you're unraveling and unwinding really old ancient shit from your story, sometimes from your family story. You're doing really big work. And so really just giving yourself that grace to like, this shit's really hard. And it was not built in a day.
Right.
It is not built in a day. So do not spend your entire holiday this year deciding you're going to resculpt the entire thing in your family, because you will lose that war. But what I want you to say is, if I can just do little pieces at a time, and I just set small limits, and I begin practicing this with a regular kind of consistent behavior, I'm going to reach the summit. I'm going to eventually get there. And yes, it's going to be work, and I will need support along the way, but I will get there. And so it's really just about recognizing that and giving yourself permission to be in that space, but that we also understand all of us have made hard choices, had hard calls and conversations. It's rough, but at the backside of that, it's really important. And so, last story, and I think this is relevant because it came to my brain, and then we'll close, unless you have another one, and then I respect.
No, it's all you, babe.
This isn't about the holidays, but I want to talk about a really tough boundary I had to set. Really tough. My parents were smokers their whole lives. And as I aged and had my own home, they would come and visit, and they would smoke in my house.
Oh, cringe.
And I love my parents. And this is not, by the way, I'm not trying to offend any smokers. We were not smokers. So in our home,
right,
it was a really big deal. What was worse was we had a time they came to visit, and I don't remember what the occasion was, and they left. And my husband and I were both literally so sick. We were laying on the floor under covers, napping and trying to sleep it off. It actually made us so sick. And it was finally, I was like, oh my God, this is the most awful conversation, because the last thing I ever want to do is shame them, ever make them feel like they're not welcome in my home. I know this is not the holidays, but roll with me, right? This is an analogy, okay, for y'all. This was something that they really loved. They love smoking. They really did. So I was like, hey, by the way, no, this is something you do all day, every day. And if you cannot do it in my house, okay?
Right. You're not asking them to quit.
No, but it was, I want them to also come to my home and be comfortable. I want them to feel seen and loved, because that's how they raised me. And I love them so much. And I'll never forget having to make this call. I was like, okay. Oh, so Mom, I have to ask you something really, really hard that I really don't want to talk to you about. So when you and Dad come to visit, I would love it if I could ask that you guys don't smoke in our house. And I tell you what I'm going to do. In the garage, I'm going to have a heater. I'm going to have an ashtray. I'm going to have chairs, and I'll make a little space. And I would be so grateful if you would be willing to smoke in the garage, because we can more easily air that out. And the last time that you guys were here, we felt really sick for like 2 days. So I don't know if we have an allergy to it. This was legit. Like, I'm like, we have to be like alert. And we were so sick. It was like having a wretched cold. And so she was like, oh, and I could tell she was like, felt bad that we were sick. I could tell she was super butthurt. And she was like, okay, all right. I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. And we got off. It was not lovely. She was not mad. There was no screaming, yelling, oh, but I thought if you love me, there was none of that. There was absolutely, but I felt like shit, even though I did the very right thing. We're not smokers in our home. That makes us not feel well, and it makes our things smell, and we don't smoke on purpose. That's not what we want for our lives. And that's okay that that's your choice.
Right.
And when you're in my wheelhouse, though, it makes us feel wretched. I can't. I want to enjoy the time. And that's why I said, I want to enjoy you guys. And if I feel like shit half the time, I'm actually not enjoying our visit.
Yeah.
And so it was hard at first, but they literally totally respected it. They never had another cigarette in our house. We did set them up a little space. We made sure that they could be as comfortable as possible. So I just want to say it came to me. So it must have been something intuitive hit, like, okay, somebody needs to hear this story. It isn't a holiday, but that was really hard because it was deeply important to them. I felt like shit asking that question. It was not glorious. So this is where I say, we're going to lean into stuff that's really effing hard. That was really awful for my husband and I. It was really important that we don't have them do that in our home.
Right. Oh, for sure. I mean, that is a hard line. And it's not holiday, but with holidays coming up, you are going to have guests. You are going to be guests in other people's homes.
Yeah.
So that is a component that might, maybe you never thought about it before.
Maybe you did.
maybe you're thinking, oh, well, I'm going to be staying at my brother's. And I mean, I'm not saying my brother's, I'm not, just so you know, I'm not, but for example, I'm staying, at so-and-so's and they
Yeah.
smoke and they do smoke in the house and it's so uncomfortable. And now I'm going to be sick. And if you're not okay with that, it might be something that not necessarily this year. I mean, it just,
Right.
with
No.
something like that, where maybe you didn't think about it before.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't think about all of these discomforts.
That's just it. Right. Exactly.
That maybe you can address and do something about.
Exactly. And again, what I want you to, exactly what you said, it could be dogs and allergies if you go to visit.
Yeah.
It could be the food that they eat and you're vegan or you are gluten-free and you can't eat what it's a million, it's a bigger thing than that. And the bottom line is I was really angsty. I was really stressed because I love my parents so much and I have so much respect. It was a really big internal battle to give myself permission to honor myself and my journey and my health and my husband's health and our home. And so that was really tough, you guys. And I just want to say, this is what boundary work looks like, right? It isn't always glorious. It isn't always easy. It's sometimes really challenging, but it's still so important. And my parents got in line.
Right.
Even though it didn't always make them comfortable and maybe they didn't want to go out in the garage, they did it because they loved us and they respected us. And that's what mutual relationship and connection looks like. Healthy connections and boundaries look like, even I might not be so comfortable, but I understand this is important to you. This is the give and take of loving other people.
Right. And the love language was you setting a place up in the garage for them.
Right. And that's, I wanted
part
that.
Of your home.
Exactly.
But it's, you understand that is a part of them and it's important to them. And to ask them not to could give them anxiety.
Exactly.
I mean, to ask them not to altogether.
Exactly. Hey,
that's not the kindest way to approach it either.
No, it's sometimes our requests are self-preservation. And you need to understand that as well. If you're listening, some of your requests are self-preservation.
Yes.
And in a million ways that we will not get into today. And so giving yourself permission to understand it's okay to do that for yourself and to take it slowly in small bite-sized pieces, to give yourself permission to grow this new habit and to understand that Rome wasn't built in a day. It also isn't about you. It isn't personal. There were actions not about you. To give yourself that grace and space and to love yourself up so much over the holiday, to have your backup people, to take extra time to rest and relax, because as you're doing this very emotional, tough work, you might feel a little more tired and wrung out. So you also want to find that balance in there to really love yourself as you're doing this work, because I don't want to tap you out for the whole season. But you will sometimes, doing emotional psychological work is really, our bodies are will tell us that we're tired, that it's taking up energy space. So just give yourself that permission to lean into that as you are capable, and make sure you've got great people. I thought you were going to say something.
No, that's beautifully said. That's beautifully said.
She was like,
my guy is home. Just behind the scenes stuff here, because remote living, this is how we work. My dog is going to start barking because
my dogs are clawing at the door.
Is that okay?
They're like, it's dinner time. It's dinner time.
So I was muted because I wanted to listen to your, but I also wanted to make sure that once the key goes in the lock and the hellhound, he's a mini schnauzer, starts to bark and let me know that there's danger at the door, I wanted to be sure that there wasn't an interruption. So that's why I had that look on my face. So
if you're listening and you're not watching, there was this blank and I'm like, what's happening? Right. I thought you had a thought. And so I was pausing. Anyway, I love virtual living. It is so,
I know
it's so freaking hilarious.
It is what it is. And it is
what it is.
I have a dog who likes to tell me when there's danger at the door. I say in air quotes.
It's okay. It's okay. My dogs are like, bitch, it's dinner time. So they're fully tapped out and they have been patient. And now my little Buddha dog is like, excuse me.
Yeah, I have questions.
Yeah, exactly. I have things we need to tend to here. Could you just wrap her up? So with that being said, my loves, let's wrap her up. We're going to come back around. I hope you'll join us for the next installment of reinventing the holidays in a way that you love and feels so beautiful to you. That's really what we're doing here. And we hope that that's what you're taking away. Again, as always, drop comments, questions, anything. And we love that. We want to come in to community, join you, support, answer questions. We always want to invite you to join us in Midlife Repurposed. It's through Femme-Powered Joy and Humor. You can find that on Facebook. It is a free community and you just have to ask to join it. So please come in and find us and ask if you want to join our community. That's a great supportive space to do all the work that's encompassing all the things we talk about. So please know that that's there if you want to come join us anytime. We would love to have you in our community. Sue, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to leave here before we close up shop?
No, I do not. And thank you for your space, because I know when we first started talking about how to approach these, I kind of hijacked it a little bit in the sense that I know that there are going to be some people who are going to really run into some solid walls. When it comes to their family members or their, I was going to say in-laws, I guess that's family members. But when it comes to those things, there can be a very, very tall, impenetrable wall.
Yeah, I think so.
But I just wanted to be clear that even if there is, that does not mean that you have to stay in that, as I mentioned earlier, in that ditch where you are just being steamrolled, because you deserve to have a voice. And speak up for yourself. And on the other side of that, like Jen said, they deserve to have a reaction, and it's not up to you what that reaction is.
Exactly. No, thank you for bringing that back. And I also want to say, I'm going to challenge you because you didn't hijack shit, number one. And number two, you went to the average person is maybe going to have a question. Like I really want, when I say that, like there's outliers of people that are going to have that question. So you just brought forward into the community exactly what someone's going to need to hear. So I thought that was brilliant. And you're exactly right. Like, what happens when that nice little mode you're going in there isn't going to work for someone? That is somebody else's question. So I'm so glad you actually went there, because somebody's going to ask it. And this is the time where if we can arm them with that wisdom, we want to do that.
And so I don't ever want anyone to say, oh, well, that's not going to work for me because my family is just a bunch of assholes. I don't, I mean, right? Because I don't want you to have that defeatist feeling like,
I don't either.
I'm stuck. This is how I have to do it. This is how I have to do things.
There are answers.
Change the tide a little bit.
There are answers, and they might be tedious, and they might be painful, and they might be long. They might be a long haul. There are fixes. In our culture of instant answers, we really struggle to dig in and do work. And I'm not trying to pick on us. There is no pill for this shit. There is no short and sweet. The only way through it is through it. And so as hard as it is, what we're trying to say is there is hope that something can be very, very different for you down the road. And so please know that. That's why I shared the story of my client and myself, some of those pivotal stories of like, where have we been and how did that end up getting resolved? There is so much hope for something to be different. And I would always want you to hear that. I would want you to hear that there is hope. If I did not believe in that, I would not have done psychotherapy for 20 years. Think about that. I would not. So if I did not see the human capacity for resilience and strength and hope, I would have given up long ago in my work. So just know that that's true, and just lean into that hopeful piece that something can and will be different for you, and trust that. And that's really hard. But if you can trust it, I swear that things will over time unravel and come back together again in a beautifully different way that is so much better for you in your life. So, all right, my friends, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Again, questions, comments, anything, we feel free, would love for you to share that. And please always feel free to share this with your friends. We are deeply grateful if you subscribe, like, and share this out. We want these messages and this mission that we have for redoing and revolutionizing midlife. We want it to go out in the world. We want everyone to be having these conversations. So please, if it's a friend, if it's a family member, if it's a colleague that you're like, oh, I know so-and-so is talking about their family, please feel free to pass this on and include it so that they too can participate in this kind of growing. And that's what we're really here to do. So, all right, my loves, I just want to sign off saying thank you so much. Blessings, love, and light to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Wait till the next one. We can't wait for you to come back and continue talking about how to reinvent the holiday.
I don't know why. I did the and. I don't know
we're
why.
doing gun fingers. It's really awkward.
Why?
But it's okay because, hey, whatever. So we just want to say thank you so much for being here, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next time to talk more about how to reinvent midlife holidays in the best way that you can and showing up in a way that you can love them all over again in a different way. So take care, everybody. We will see you soon.
Bye-bye.